I continued to teach the course on the history of Western consciousness and in the experimental college at UC Davis, and to explore those via books, explore that part of my interest. But then out of that exploration and the teaching came another project that became a major part of my life. I got back into the dualistic mode, but I realized that part of Western consciousness is that we really do not have a good awareness of how we actually physically relate to the earth and our environment. And so that idea of what used to be, going and driving for many miles or even flying to India to sit, in a cave and contemplate nature, I realized that, hey, flying to India back in the 1980s would have been in a 747 airliner in which the fuel consumption of each passenger is equivalent to each passenger driving a Cadillac to India and back. Now that is a huge environmental impact. And so I began to look at that and embarked on a project to quantify that for individuals, to get people to become aware of how they impact the environment. I renamed it EarthAware when I ported it over to Windows 3.1. I developed these different rankings that you can end up with depending on how many impact points and advocacy points. Okay, so there were advocacy points. Some people thought that everything, was carbon dioxide, but when you become aware of, say, the extinction of various species, whether it's cactus plants or bird species that are being traded in the wildlife trade, unless they're cutting down a rainforest for them, that has very little to do with global warming and climate change. So there are these different, very different dimensions in there. In developing the Windows version, the EarthAware version, it was very early. The internet was very young. It was 1992 and 93. And the way I would solve problems, I used, because you may remember we had these different, I used CompuServe, which was, so we had AOL, America Online, CompuServe, and then there were several others that were these services that you could pay a small fee for. And CompuServe had these programmers on there, and it was really good. I mean, I've never had, it was like having, professional paid consulting. I would ask a question almost every day about programming. How do I do this? Or here's this problem I have with Visual Basic. And it would, so there were these different categories that you could join, and one of them was Windows, Visual Basic. And they would get back to me within 12 hours, these programmers, these guys who knew a lot. And so anyway, that was at the, very early on. And then I started to use the internet, and there's still, I put in, as you go through EarthAware, on each subject, say consumerism or renewable energy, I put up some URLs into the program, and that was 25 years ago. So it would be highly unusual if any of those are still there. but it is still downloadable and available. Trace is on. This is how the program runs when the trace is on. Goes through each code, each line of code, and shows you what it's doing.
Hey
This is
Don,
how I program.
what are you doing there?
Doing my work. Program.
What's up?
Personal Environmental Impact Analysis program.
Oh, this is your program, huh?
So,
How is it going?
slow.
Slow? What do you mean by slow?
Well,
You have been working so hard.
yeah, software has an infinite number of problems.
Yeah.
So this is how I work because I like standing up.
Is this all your stuff?
Yeah. It's all my stuff. This is I finished the EarthAware software and I let it go out there, and it has never really done much for 3 or 4 main reasons. One, it was probably 25 years ahead of its time. It was pushing uphill to get it taken up by the environment community and the climate change community, and which in the early and mid 1990s was mainly people like Al Gore and a few others. Secondly, I was and remain more of a scientist and scholar than I am a business person, and to get something like this out and successful and well established and perhaps purchased, I needed to schmooze. I needed to connect with people. I needed to get out more, and I'm still not very good at that. I work on what I want to do and what stimulates me, okay, my creative endeavors. And so I let it go at that. And so the third main reason is that I then came across the reason to get back to my PhD, a new project that completely left behind the biometeorology and the agroforestry biometeorology projects that I had attempted during the time when there was little funding. But I later in this video I'll talk about my eventual PhD research on the wine in the wine country, on vineyards, and the ability of organically managed vineyards to resist the phylloxera insect, the infestation and the decline of vineyards, and the ability of organically managed vineyards to resist that. And so I went on to other things